All right, we're moving to our final panel for today. Iran, Qatar, and Turkey, the terror financing axis. I'm going to briefly present, in my words, each of the participants. Excuse me if this is not formal enough. Dr. Udi Levi, to me, is the godfather of terror financing in Israel, former head of Tiltzal, of Harpoon Unit, and a knowledge source that we're all drawing from, and has been very helpful in setting up the thinking behind CENTEF. So, Udi, welcome.
Thank you.
Roy Agagny, CPA, is managing a financial research and investigative research firm, Megiddo, which is, we've done a couple of projects together, and I'm proud to have this group on stage. And Omer, whom you've already met, who's leading Cognyte, has decades of experience in intelligence in general and in financial intelligence specifically. So I think we have a good group of people with us today. Udi, let's set it off. How does the world look like right now? And I'm going to reverse the order. What are we not looking at that we should be looking at?
First of all, I think that in the last 2 years, there is a lot of changes in many aspects that we're speaking today about. Financial infrastructure of terrorist organization, from two main reasons, if I can say. First of all, I think that the Iranian becoming now in a very difficult situation. In most of the cases, we are speaking about the Iranian only in the aspect of the nuclear issue, but sometimes we are forgetting that they were one of the two countries that were the most financier of the terrorism all over the world. And I think that the last year, something a little bit changed with the Iranian because the financial difficulties. And immediately it's reflect in their capability to continue in finance organization like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the other. It doesn't mean that they stop. But there is more difficulties. You can see that less money now goes from them to Hezbollah. I have to admit, we didn't mention it, but I think that there is still a lot of money that they continue to move to Hamas by using specifically the crypto channel. This is a good question that we have to ask ourselves. How, even in the middle of the war, that almost all Israeli IDF in Gaza, Hamas still have the capability to get money and to finance himself? This is a good question. But they are still continue to finance the Houthis. But as I said, they have a difficulties. The other things, it's with the Qataris. I think that the war put the Qataris in a very difficult situation because today the spot of the world about the involvement of the Qataris in financing terrorism becoming more and more critical, and they have to be, let's say, more dangerous about what they're doing. So you see that they're trying to be less involved in terror financing. But it doesn't mean that the terrorist organization will not find. And as we see with the huge amount of money that the Hezbollah and the Iranian did in the past, for example, from the Captagon in Syria, now they move all this industrial to Yemen. So immediately there is no vacuum in the world. I think that it will take a little bit time now to see the new powers, how exactly the situation will change, what exactly will happen. But we are in the middle of this period.
And I would like us in a second to go back to we're almost 2 years after October 7th. And I would like us to go back into what Qatar's involvement was in financing this massacre and the war that followed it. Before that, I want to ask Roy. Udi gave an overview of what's happening in Iran, Qatar. I know that you've been involved in following some of these MOs and transactions. How are these guys, let's say, using their resources? What are their means and methods? Both let's say, on the black side, the white side, I think we know, but how are they using the gray space, the Qataris specifically? What are their means of operations? What are their MOs?
So let's just start with the Iranian, because in Iran, the big problem that they cannot move money in the bank system. So they need to create like a bank shadow, like a network that they can use money like shell companies and fund companies and other entities, and they use this money with, I want to give you an example, a real example that actually happened 3 months ago. There is a Zarin Gallant family, a Persian family. There is only 3 brothers, but they built the largest network of money laundering into Iran. What they do, they actually registered more than 30 companies in countries like the UAE, Turkey, Hong Kong, China, and they chose these countries in purpose because they know the law enforcement and the financial oversight is very low there, is very weak. And they use these countries and they use this bank system to move the funds, and the funds actually came from unreported oil sales, especially to China. And the problem was that these funds were stuck in the Chinese banks. And they actually moved these funds through this network into like fake documents, trade invoices, but nothing is behind. It's just what we call the method, the TBML, trade-based money laundering. And in 2025, the US Treasury sanctioned this network, and they said that this money goes directly to the terrorist organization in the region, and also to build this nuclear program and developing the missiles.
I will make one observation that despite the efforts of the international community have come up and down in blocking flows of money to Iran, A, it goes up and down. B, there are legitimate venues. I don't know if we discussed this, but the export of vegetables from Iran to the UAE, even to the US, is increased by 1,000% year over year. Now, when you look at only zucchinis, maybe it's less interesting. But if you look at the agricultural sector, which is, broadly speaking, is legitimate, and you see the increases in output, there are obviously money flows. And as we keep on saying, there are ways around things. So if you block X, Y will open, etc. Omer, I keep coming back to how can we see it, how can we monitor it, and by doing that, how can we prevent it? But things like Roy is describing, these setups of hyper sophisticated financial networks that I must suspect are not only, they're not only black, Otherwise, you would have identified them immediately. It's probably intertwined between, you know, legitimate and illegitimate businesses. Maybe these guys are doing finance, these guys are moving metal, these guys are doing that, and along the way, whether it's 1 to 3 or 3 to 1, they're also moving illicit funds. So how does the country, how does the world go about, you know, seeing this, understanding this? Maybe then we can discuss on how to also stop it.
I'll start my answer with an irony. The irony is that within the EEI, the essential elements of information, what is called in Hebrew tziach, of intelligence agencies, usually terror funding is at the bottom of the list. The immediate implication is that the traditional methods to collect data, usually over SIGINT and cyber, are just not allocated to this EEI. That pushed many agencies to open source, to OSINT. And I think the irony is that OSINT is better equipped to give answers to terror funding than SIGINT and cyber. I'll give you an example. There is a website called Wiki Iran, which holds records, leaked records, of financial entities from Iran that are dealing with either proliferations of arms, the nuclear program, and also transferring of illicit funds, including shell companies, invoices, and such. So I don't know who leaked it, okay? I have an assumption. I don't know who leaked it. But the fact that it already exists enables us to use it as a good data source. It enables us to get a baseline of what either that website or open source in general already thinks about the problem to connect it to other data sources. So I think to some extent, there is an opportunity to better utilize open source. And just as a reference, usually when I say open source, people think about social media. That's like the immediate reflex of when people are talking about. But open source is a much broader domain. So website is one element, and data providers like Moody's or LexisNexis is another example. And news sites and crypto and all of those elements are essential to understand the money flow. Because as Roy mentioned, and I think I super agree with what he said, everything is on the table. We're just not looking at it. Or we're just not looking at it in a way that we can make sense out of it. So I'm returning to my former statement for those that heard me in the previous panel. It might sound redundant, but I still believe that we need to do two things that we're not doing today. First is the ability to centralize the data from all the different sources. We're not doing it today. And when we're doing it in a manual manner. I think that's where technology can assist. The second part is through the AI. Because the AI doesn't just work on the specific profiles, on the companies, on the involved individuals. It works on the relations. We want to identify, detect, surface, prioritize suspicious relations. Just as an example, a person and a company can be tied to each other under multiple relations. A person can be the CEO, it can be a shareholder, it can be a director, it can be a stakeholder, and it can also be a linkage to another company that operates as a shell company to the first company. If we don't allow the data to visualize it to the analyst or to the investigator, there is no real manual way to surface it. So I think one, OSINT is the way to go, and SIGINT will be complementary, unlike other parts of the EEI. And second is the need to introduce new technologies that I think to some extent already exist in the market, but either not utilized or not utilized in that manner, and to focus on the ability to consolidate all of the open source into one section and then surface through the AI the problematic or suspicious indicators. I think that's the way to go. And in that case, Zarin Galam will be surfaced, by the way, also appear in Wiki Iran, That way ties to Chinese companies that are investing in agricultural products that are supplied by Iranian companies who might surface potential other financial relations. So I think that's the way to go.
Mike, I can add something. I think that Omer gave a very good example about Wiki Iran. Wiki Iran is amazing sources. I think it's 1 million of documents you have inside. But if you learn the material there, you can find almost all the financial infrastructure that the Iranian built for many, many years to circumvent the sanction all over the world. I can tell you that, and I think it's not secret, there is few people here that I spoke with them when they were in the government, that I think that this source gave Israel and the international community a great opportunity to shut down the Iranian economy or to cause them a real damage, to stop to finance, for at least for a limited time, flow of money for Revolutionary Guards and the other. The main problem sometimes is not the information and the intelligence, is the willing of countries, especially United States and the other, to enforce the sanction that they impose by themselves. Because the information exists. You don't need even to make a very sophisticated operation. The second remark that I want to emphasize, it's related to what my friend Matt Levitt mentioned in the beginning about Card el-Hassan. Card el-Hassan, again, there is a huge of information leaked. I don't think that someone did someone with this in the beginning. But I have to tell you a very interesting scenario that a few days after we bombed the shelter of Nasrallah in Lebanon, I got a phone call from a journalist from a very, very serious journal and told me, Dr. Levi, please confirm me that you knew exactly the position of Nasrallah because the leak of Card el-Hassan. I have to admit that, first of all, I left many years ago, but I have very surprised from the questions. And I asked him, I didn't answer. I learned it from my father-in-law, Mr. Dagan, never answer about something like that. But I say, why you said? He said, because we checked very carefully the information inside, and we saw that there is information about the companies that built all the tunnels. So we sure that you knew about it because you monitor it. I say, no comment. But it shows you how much information you can get from those documents, from those leaking of documents. Unfortunately, I don't think that we are doing it. And the last remarks, I'm sorry that I'm taking. There is today millions of documents in Gaza. I have the privilege for a short period to pass some of them. It's unbelievable material that we have there to show exactly what Elite said and the other, and what the former panel speak about the methodology, who were involved, who did. The problem is nobody taking very serious, nobody spent enough efforts to understand exactly how all this system all over the world work. But you have everything there. Everything is including there. And as Omer said, if you are putting all of them maybe in AI and the other, you can get unbelievable picture that will serve all the world. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. You answered. I was going to ask you how significant, impactful, lethal is the action, or are we just, moving around papers and dealing with intel all day, but actually not acting on it? I think you answered that diplomatically, that maybe we're gravitating more towards intel and gravitating less towards acting. Not, by the way, Israel, but in general, the world.
I think yes, First of all, this is something more philosophy, maybe. The issue of fighting against terror financing is not attractive. It's not attractive. You are not getting medals if you are doing something against money changer, or if you are stop the flow of the money. It's not like to bring the archive from Iran. But if you ask me, the effectiveness to stop the pipe of the money to those terrorist organizations is more critical than any active. And I can say, and it's not a secret that I say it, we can continue to fight in Gaza for many, many years. We will not win. But if, in parallel, millions of dollars continue to flow to Gaza, to finance, to give them the opportunity, because there is no alternative to the people there. The only alternative that they have is to get $200 or $100 from the Hamas and to take the weapon and to join to the Azadin al-Qassam, because they are not working. It's more than 90% the unemployment there. So the only alternative today to get money is to go to the Hamas. And if they still have the money, they will continue to recruit people, and it will be never-ending war. So we have to put in high priority the idea that we have to find a way to stop the flow of the money to Gaza, for example. This is something very, very important. I think that in Lebanon it's done better today because there is more, first of all, there is more involvement of the Lebanese government and the American and the international community. So it's more effective, and I think that we see the results. In Gaza, no. So if we will not fight now against the money that's going to Gaza, maybe it will take a long time.
You're saying that money is still going to Gaza.
Yes.
And I said I wanted to ask you, so I do want to ask you, and I'm going to take another minute. It's actually not a minute. This is probably a 2-hour conversation. We know the Qataris have been funding Hamas and Gaza for years. State-sanctioned, Israel and the US dollars in suitcases going in through the ISA. I don't know. I have to believe that the situation is different right now. I hope to believe that the situation is different right now. If it's not, please tell me. How are they, maybe I'll ask Udi, I'll ask Roy, all three. How are the Qataris, right, still pushing funds into these various illicit activities, despite the fact that, as we mentioned here, you know, there's a lot more focus and light on them.
I would like to answer you about that, and let's look about Qatar globally. Qatar, in the recent, let's say in the last decade, bought strategic assets in the key countries like the UK, Germany, France, also the US, and they don't just buy these assets they want to earn profits. The real reason is where they invest the money in the Western economies, they actually get some dependency on the Qatari capital, and that gives them the financial shield. And the financial shield actually protects Qatar from investigation or from sanction about things that everybody knows they are actually involved. And for example, Qatar holds 10% of London Stock Exchange, 20% of Heathrow Airport. They have financial institutions, Barclays Bank, Deutsche Bank. They even own the Citibank, they hold and sell, but they even own the Empire State Building in New York. So you need to think globally. The money gives them the power to control. If you think about the UN, for example, they increase every year the money they put there, and also in the UNICEF and the other sub-organizations under the UN, and they have actually politically power over there. And this power, what we call the silent terror, because the money they invest in Europe, 1 billion euro in the last 10 years, the money don't get to the humanitarian aid or development. It goes to Muslims centers, to build Muslim centers, to mosques, and it doesn't stop there because the Qatari maintain these places. They bring imams and preachers, and this is how they spread the Muslim Brotherhood propaganda. And this leads to radicalization and causes terror. And what we need to think about the definition of terror is because we are now in kind of changing. This is like silent terror that we can see in Europe, that the escalation every year. And in Israel, we know it for many years, but now it's like everyone can see that.
I like it.
I think the notion of being a significant shareholder or sitting on a board of legitimate enterprises and owning trophy assets and the credibility that gives you within financial communities, it's overlooked. It's hard, it's overlooked because it's hard to see because it's hiding in plain sight, right? And unless you believe, you have to work under the assumption, you must believe that Qatar is a bad actor to say there's something wrong with it. Otherwise, they're just another sovereign fund. How are they different than the Norwegians, for example? I think it's an important observation, and I think us as Westerners, we have certain, not only frameworks, but we have built a certain economic perception and system that allows it. And the question is, if we need to start changing the system to adapt to these specific things, are we changing fast enough? Are we efficient enough? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we behind the curve? Are we even incentivized to make those changes? Because as you said, if you're having lunch every other Tuesday with your board member who just happens to work for a specific or a certain country, and he tells you, forget about that. Let's focus on the other 7 topics or whatnot. So there are ways about it.
I can give you another example from the US if we have the time. Briefly, okay. So in the US, Qatar operates through the Qatar Foundation of Education. This is a fund that everybody knows now. They inject more than $5 billion to American university. Sorry. And one interesting thing that is about the Texas A&M University. And Texas, everybody, if somebody doesn't know, Texas University is a giant university in the US that a few years ago they opened a campus in Qatar, what they call the education city, and they actually conduct a mutual research in a very sensitive field like the nuclear research and cybersecurity. But what it's exposed recently, because leak information and because legal procedures, that Qatar state actually control the IP, the budgets, and every sensitive data that was in this research. And a very fascinating details is the head of this program was Ilham Al-Qaradawi, professor. If this name is familiar, we are speaking about the daughter of Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, one of the Muslim Brotherhood very known ideologues, and this is an amazing part. And of course, the university, after public pressure, they closed the program, and under some reason that we know that this is not true, because there is an security reasons, they're hiding that. And we can say that Qatar is everywhere, in education, in investment, in sports, media, humanitarian aid, you name it. So the borderline is now between the soft power and the terror financing has been blurred.
I'm just going to do the summary of everything here on stage together with these folks. Omer, 60 seconds. First of all, thank you for Cognyte for sponsoring this event and for helping us bring everyone together and for being such an exceptional partner, not only to us, but in general to the community. I'm going to ask each of you 60 seconds. After this, we're going back to our lives. What should we as a community be doing differently? Who should we be talking to? What should we be telling them to make the maximum amount of change, of impact, and the minimum effort between now and, let's say, the next conference a year from now?
Oh, 60 seconds. Okay.
60 seconds.
I think we need to invest in tech that will allow us to be predictive and not retrospective. We need to invest in tech that will allow us not to investigate, but to expose. I think when we're talking about Qatar, we're talking about reputation. Qatar have invested in their own reputation. That is what allows them or enables them to move money almost without any interruptions. I think that is the point, and I think we are, and I said it before, but I'll just repeat that as a final statement. I think intelligence analysts and intelligence agencies are reluctant from really diving into this domain. I think this is why the procurement of technologies went to other sections. And I think since money makes the world go round, we need to understand that we need to invest not just in endpoint solutions for I don't know, finance geeks that want to understand how the blockchain behaves. We need to invest in technology that will surface those networks, those hubs, those transactions, those relations. And for that, we need to focus on centralized solutions, and we need to invest in dedicated AI to this section, not generalize it. That's it.
Roy, 60 seconds.
I will give you one sentence that maybe be good than 60 seconds. The US need to enforce the real power that they have about the sanction, and especially in countries that like Turkey, the UAE, and Hong Kong, that this is the money go through this bank system and go to the terrorist organization over the world. And when they do that, I promise you, there is change very quickly.
Udi.
I think, from my experience, that if we are expecting from the formal system, the governments, to improve their dealing with terror financing, it would be very difficult because, as I said, it's not attractive. And secondly, from the political reason, I think that today, because specifically when speaking about Qatar, we are very limited to take a decision against them because of political reason, and we will speak later about bribes and corruption, etc. But, and we believe, I have to admit that we believe in this aspect for many, many years. The private sector has a huge capabilities to manage a very sophisticated and very effective war against financial infrastructure of terrorist organization. We didn't mention the legal aspects, but there is a lot of activity there that's very effective against those elements that financing terrorism. We spoke about the crypto. Binance today is going to face unbelievable lawsuits against them because they finance a lot of activity in October 7. And there is, and as Omer said, a lot of companies ready now to spend more money to be involved, and they have a huge capability to get information and to use it. And there is another element, like Ili setting in face of me, that what they're doing, that there is NGOs that find a way to speak directly with the financial institution and to share with them intelligence that they will do something, and they will never say we didn't know about it. I think that we have to improve it, to do it in more coordination, as it will be effective.
I'll add my 60 seconds to wrap up this discussion, but also the conference. I think, or my view is, that putting this topic, this subject, front and center in the public eye, in front of decision makers in government, creating pressure on decision makers to deal with it, supporting the law enforcement, the judicial system, the regulators in their fight and in their effort to fight against these phenomenons should be a top priority, not only of every Israeli or American, but in general. Terrorism and the crime relating to terrorism impacts every law-abiding individual everywhere in the world. It's a zero-sum game, and criminal activity is worsening the lives of every person out there, period. So I think it is our responsibility as a community to push this subject, to put it front and center, to fight for it, to support the people who are fighting for it, to allocate resources to it, to enable more collaboration there, and so on and so forth. With that, I would like to thank everyone for coming and for joining us today. Our teams are here. We would like to continue this dialogue and this conversation, and you're welcome to go into our website. In a week from now, we'll have a summary of all these panels, including the videos. We would like to thank Cognyte, ICT, Reichman University, the CENTEF team and researchers, and everyone for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.